How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh from Elder Drunken Highlander, and I'm coming to you with a deck tech video for Urabrask, the Phyrexian praetor Urabrask. No fancy title on him, no nothing. This is a cEDH deck tech, which means that we're going to be doing a cEDH deck. So if you're looking for something casual and fun to bring to your local game store, I don't know, maybe cut the good cards out of this deck and start from there. Yeah, this deck is trying to win quickly, is trying to beat other competitive EDH decks, and I think I did a pretty good job making it get there. There's a lot of really cool stuff this commander can do that other commanders that do similar things in similar colors cannot. So I really like it. I would compare it to Bergi, I would compare it to Sorcery, I would compare it to Mizzix a little bit in how it tries to get its game plan executed and what it tries to do, and I think it stacks up pretty well against all three of those decks that nobody really plays anymore anyways. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to cast a bunch of spells and use Urabrask's first ability or some other kind of combo to finish off all of our opponents. Urabrask is a 4/4 with first strike, which means he does not mess around when he's on the battlefield, and because of that, you're allowed to play like this cool, like hybrid, I wouldn't say a mid-range game plan because you're playing mono red, but you can afford, it's not like Bergi, where in Bergi, if you wait a couple turns, that's game over. You're not going to win anymore because everyone's going to get their defenses up, they're going to get some counter spells. Bergi loses to a single piece of interaction. So a deck like that, you want to be fast. Whereas Urabrask, you can pressure life totals. You have a 4/4 on the battlefield. You have a much better ability to sit and wait for your window. And so because of that, you can be a lot more chill. Heck, you even have the backside of Urabrask, which deals 3 damage to each creature a player controls, that you can just flip to after casting 3 random spells, which is basically free because Urabrask makes the mana and whatever you want. So you have like the option to go for the slower, grindier, mid-range game plan, saying like, no, Timna player, I'm wiping your board and we're waiting 2 more turns before we try anything. Or you can play up Urabrask turn 1 with the Jeweled Lotus and try to combo off turn 2. It's completely up to you with how you want to build this deck, which is why I think it's a little bit better than other decks that are doing similar things. Of course, I haven't play tested it yet. The card was spoiled literally yesterday, so we'll see. We'll see if that holds up versus other cEDH decks and not just in gold fishing. But yeah, this deck's just trying to cast a bunch of instant and sorcery spells and get out as many of them as possible each game, try and deal a bunch of damage and flip Urabrask. We'll go over the creature package first because it's pretty simple. It's your standard cEDH creature package. There's some notables in here that we'll talk about, but it's pretty standard. Darcy, any storm deck that runs Underworld Breach, gotta have Darcy. Ragavan is a dork. He just gets our commander out faster. This card sucks. I don't know why anybody runs it. Goblin Engineer. So this is an important one. Staff of Completion is really, really important in this deck. Staff of Completion says that you can tap, pay 2 life, and proliferate. The reason that's good is because you need to proliferate the lore counters on the saga that is Urabrask to get it up to the final version, which is basically just a meme betrayal without the mana clause. You can cast instants and sorceries from anyone's graveyard, use Urabrask's red ability to make red every time you do that, because Urabrask flips back over after that happens. So you get to meme betrayal, sort of, kind of, not really, with an Urabrask on the battlefield, which is just nutty. So you want to be turboing towards that as fast as possible. That is the main way that you're going to set up your win, is by flipping your Urabrask twice in one turn. Flipping back to the saga, and then flipping back to Urabrask all in one turn. And the Staff of Completion helps you do that. I'll talk more about that later. But there's a lot of cards in here that exist just to find the Staff of Completion, because that card's great. Krark. You get a red mana and you deal a damage whenever you cast a spell. That spell does not have to resolve. And Krark, he's real good at putting your spells back in your hand every once in a while, so you get to cast them again. So that's why you have Krark. He's just going to be free damage and free mana for people. Free cast triggers, stuff like he'll trigger the Stormkiln Artist whenever I return a spell to my hand. So that's pretty good. Dualcaster Mage is our other win con. This is going to find either Krark or Dockside. I'm not super happy with this card. I might cut it. Imperial Recruiter finds Krark or Dockside. And then this is actually really just in here for the haggle. The other part of him is like, maybe I'll cast it sometimes. It's an outlet for my red mana if I need that, but the haggle is pretty sweet, so haggle's in here. And then mana. They just make mana. And we don't really, I don't know. This might be too many creatures. The deck only makes mana off of instants and sorceries. It's not like Bergi, where you get access to Grinning Ignis, you get access to artifact cantrips. You don't have any of that, so I don't know. 12 might be too many for creatures. I want to be making mana from casting stuff like this. And these are all the cool spells that we could be casting with our commander. Lots of things that either make mana or draw you 1 or more cards. Finale of Promise is really sweet because it casts both the cards from the graveyard. So that's 3 casts of Urabrask. So if I pay 3 mana into it and get 2 1-mana spells, it's free. If I pay 4 mana into it and get 2 2-mana spells, then it's only 1 mana effectively. I only go down 1 mana to cast it because I get 3 mana back from the 3 Urabrask triggers from the 3 casts. So that's super cool. Grape Shot. Yeah, we're on every single extra turn spell in this deck, and the reason for that is because sagas get a counter on your main phase. So if you get another main phase, you get another counter on your saga, which means 1 proliferate plus an extra turn spell also gets you to flip your Urabrask, which is super, super important. This is so we don't lose as frequently. Pyroclasm. This is our one little board control thing. We have like the 3 mana 2 damage thing that lets you discard and draw too, but that's really it. And it's just a bunch of ways to get cards, man. That's the whole rest of the deck. Storm Staple bonus round, Storm Staple Galvanic replay. This is in here for Twin Flame, but what I like about Heat Shimmer is you can also copy your opponent's creatures. So if you're in a pinch and you want to get some extra draws, steal a Tymna, get 2 draws for your turn, and then try to storm off with your extra 2 cards. Just more ways to either get more cards or deal damage, and then just, we all know why these cards are good. We all know why Mystic's Mastery is good in a Storm deck. Casting everything at once, that seems just busted. And we'll quickly go over the sorceries too. I feel like I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about this deck because, you know, it's a Storm deck. We all know what it's doing. We're playing cards and trying to get more cards. Burnout is a notable one though. It helps protect our Storm combo in the turn that we're using it, or you can be a little gremlin and interact in counter wars. Oh no, don't worry about the mana I have open. I'm mono wed. Oh, and then bam, counter their stuff. Hieratic Ritual, same as Desperate Ritual. Reverberate, same as Fork. What's really cool about Reverberate and Fork is Reverberate and Fork, if you have them both, you can have them copy each other. Same for Reiterate. And what that does is it means that you can get infinite Magecraft triggers and then infinite mana with the Stormkiln Artist, which is pretty sweet. It's just a nice, cool little thing that we could do. I'll probably never intentionally go for that, but it's a thing. The nice thing about Reverberate and Fork as well is you can copy your opponent's tutors, and you can participate in the counterspell wars with them. So they are very, very versatile spells. I would actually say that they're better interaction than Tibalt's Trickery in this deck specifically, because this deck, 2 mana to protect your combo is a lot. 2 mana this is more of a stop someone else from winning card than it is a protect your own combo. And Fork and Pirate and Reverberate can also do that pretty effectively. If someone tutors for a win con, you cast your Fork or Reverberate and tutor for a way to stop it. Easy mode. And then we just have some more interaction at the top end of our instants and sorceries, with the exceptions of these cards. This one is another way to it's first of all, it's interaction, it's 3 damage to something, but it's another proliferate effect. 3 mana seems like a lot, except when Urabrask flips, right? He deals 3 damage to everything. You use this thing to kill one other thing. Maybe there's a Crom that survived or something, and then it proliferates you, and you get 3 treasures, which means this is basically a free spell, more or less. So that's kind of sweet there. And then you can spend those treasures on a Final Fortune and take an extra turn with your flipped Urabrask Saga and go off. This one's sweet because it only costs 1 when Urabrask is on the board. This is a card that is kind of underrated. I want to see more Bolt Bend in cEDH. It's an underrated card in non-blue decks. It's just underrated. And then this is another underrated card. This will copy something twice for 4 mana, which is sweet. It also does infinite Magecraft triggers just on its own, copying itself, which is sweet. But really, it's in here to copy a very, very important high-impact spell twice. Opponent casts a tutor, I will tutor twice. And then Artifact Package, pretty simple stuff. I'm not sure how I feel about Lion's Eye Diamond, just because Lion's Eye Diamond doesn't make a mana when we cast it, so just having it in there as a free spell is okay. The reason I'm on it right now is we do cast a lot of spells from exile, and we are on Underworld Breach, so it'll help us when we're casting spells not from our hand, and it helps us get out our commander really early if we're desperate, but I don't know how I feel about this card. I might end up cutting it. And then that's basically the only notable cards in the deck, besides the one that I'm saving for last, the good one. Ruby Medallion, another Storm standard, and of course you can't have a Storm deck nowadays without Underworld Breach. Let's talk Staff of Completion though, because this is the entire crux of the deck. Staff of Completion is sweet with Urabrask on the Saga. So you've cast your 3 instant and sorcery spells, right? You get a mana back for each of them. We're going to assume those are all 1 mana, right? Then you spend 3 mana on Staff of Completion. You spend 1 more mana to flip Urabrask, so that's 4 mana that we spent total here, right? Then you spend 3 life and you proliferate. Now Urabrask has dealt 3 damage to everything, and now he's slipped to the next stage and he's made 3 treasures. So you spent 4 mana, you've gotten 3 mana back, so you've effectively spent 1 mana. Then you spend 5 mana to untap Staff of Completion and proliferate again, which means that you've effectively spent 6 mana to get to the end of your saga, which is pretty gnarly. Honestly, pretty great. So I really like that. I like that you can just go, yeah, like 3 instant sorcery spells, Urabrask, and then flip Urabrask, and then cast your Staff of Completion, untap your Staff of Completion, and go for it. The fact that Urabrask makes 3 treasures on the second stage of his saga is just so gnarly. It's like they had Staff. They probably actually literally did have Staff of Completion in mind when they made that, because it's just too perfect. It's just too perfect. And it's so easy to tutor artifacts in mono red compared to other stuff. We have Gamble, we have Goblin Engineer, we have Inventor's Fair, and stuff like that to go get it. I was even thinking about putting Expedition Map in here to search for Inventor's Fair, because I'm a big fan of that package in Casual. You know, I'd be cutting Lion's Eye Diamond for that. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. It's something that I just have to test. I just have to play this deck a lot and test it out. Yeah, that is more or less the entire deck. That's the whole thing. It's a pretty simple Storm deck. If you've played Burgi, you can play this deck. Now that you know the Staff of Completion line, you know the only weird thing about it. I really think this is going to be something that we're going to see a lot of in cEDH games, mostly because it's very, very fun and a very popular character, but also just because it seems like it can get there. It seems like it has leg. A 4/4 first strike is nothing to sneeze at. And being able to pressure life totals whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, even if it's just for value, even if it's just to stall the game, is also really sweet. I bet you can even go even further in the mid-range direction and play like more burn spells, more board wipes, more things to control the table, and then try to storm off all in one turn with the backside and some other things like, I don't know, you could probably put Desperate Ritual in here, maybe Mana Geyser even, some artifacts. You could probably put Grinding Station combo in here. There's a lot of options that I haven't explored yet because it's been about 26 hours since this card got released, and there's just a lot of stuff you still could be doing. So if you have any ideas, any plans, any stuff you want to do with Urabrask, head on to our Discord server. We have a chat right now started by one of our moderators, James, where he's brewing his own version of my deck, and I've hijacked it for this deck too. So if you have an Urabrask deck that you want to share, please, by all means, share it in the channel. We also have a Twitter. You can follow our Twitter if you want to see us mostly talk shit and post bad combos and sometimes pictures of pretty cards. And yeah, we have a Patreon if you want to pay us. But most importantly, you should like, you should comment, and you should subscribe. That very much supports the channel. Stay janky, my friends, and I'll see you all next time.